now we have to move on to our next story, and that is with our good friend Joe Biden. So, Jerome, I need you to play this video because this is evidence enough of why Joe Biden's going to be a failure of a candidate, especially going up against Trump, and why he clearly has some cognitive issues. So everybody listen up and hear good old Joe Biden speak. And I'm sorry to put you guys
Try
through
to
it.
speak. Try to speak.
Thank you. There we go.
Here we go.
As you've been seeing, our healthcare system seems to be crumbling underneath this crisis. There is not enough. There's not enough support for the healthcare system. There's not enough support for the American people inside of the healthcare system. Are you now reconsidering your position when it comes to single payer healthcare?
Single payer will not solve that at all. The thing that is needed is, for example, we have a whole number of hospitals that are being so stretched, including rural hospitals, they're going to need more financing. That doesn't come from a single payer system. That comes from the federal government stepping up and dealing with the concerns that they have, the reimbursement that they're going to get, how they're going to be able to move forward, and how they're going to be able to provide all the needed help that are needed in their communities. This is an opportunity to look at reconstructing the healthcare system in a way that, in fact, can respond more rapidly and more effectively to these kinds of crises, because it's going to come again. We should be spending, and we are spending, a great deal of time and effort finding a vaccine, finding a way that we can deal with preventing these diseases further down the road. But for example, we had people, when our administration, we had CDC people in other countries because we wanted to anticipate when, in fact, another virus would occur, when, in fact, a pandemic might occur as a consequence of a spreading virus in another country, to act quickly. President, we withdrew those people. I insisted that I didn't insist. I suggested that we should have people in China at the outset of this event. And when it all started in Wuhan province, and what happened, we did not insist that they go into the areas we wanted to. So I just, that's all I can do, is do what I know has to be done, say what I know has to be done.
So if you become the nominee and then you do win the general election, a lot of ifs there, how quickly in that matter can you reassemble the pandemic team that the president got rid of?
Very quickly. Very quickly. It can be done very quickly. And that's what my team is talking about right now. How will we do that if we win? And what will we do exactly on day one? How will it start?
All right, corporate media. All right, Democrats. This is your blue king. This is your guy that's going to take on Trump. He doesn't even have a plan. He couldn't even keep it together with an easy question like that. And even again, when presented with the opportunity of endorsing Medicare for all, which of course he will never do, he said, no, it won't do it. It won't solve anything. All the while calling for a system sounding similar to Ken while he was rambling on with a whole bunch of word salad. I mean, this is Joe Biden, someone who cannot keep a single question. He cannot answer a single question, and he fails miserably at it. This is a guy who is going to somehow beat Trump. Trump's going to capitalize on this. And look, again, we are far from having a cure at this point for this COVID-19. But who knows how this general election is going to play out. But somehow Joe Biden hypothetically coming together and having a team that's going to somehow, deal with COVID-19, it's kind of too little too late at this point. The virus is already out there, and there's nothing that Joe Biden and his magical team can do to fix this crisis. At this point, this is Trump's problem, and this is something that Trump and his team's going to have to fix. And Trump is somebody who can actually tout on getting things done, rallying to his crowd, rallying to his supporters, and Joe Biden can't do that. Joe Biden's at home in Delaware. He's not advising or giving advice to anybody. He doesn't know what time of day it is at this point. This is a guy who is lost. And as the nominee, he will lose to Trump. And even the reporter, at this point, I want to pull the lady aside and say, well, what are you trying to do? You're trying to have a conversation with somebody who's not all there. And I what else can be said about Joe Biden other than that he is a failure and that this guy has a history of constantly supporting neoliberal policies. Paul, Daniel, take it away. Paul, I can tell you're ready to chomp at the bit at this one.
No, it's just the the answer to the question that I want to give is the good one. Is the right answer to this question that I totally remember what it was that you're asking me, and I want to make sure that all of the people like the answer that I give to the question that I totally understand and know what it is, and I'm going to get there. And you're still looking at me like I haven't answered that question, But I think everyone needs to like that answer. What was the question again?
Oh, I thought I was playing the YouTube video there.
That's what he did, and it's so ridiculous. And he's.
But he does that in all of his interviews.
Right.
He does it in all of his interviews, though.
Some politicians are good enough that they can hand wave away some parts of it and like get you to fixate on some other part and get you to go, oh yeah, well, okay, well maybe there's some other part of it that's important, and we should talk about that other part of it, and you get distracted. And he tried to go back to, but it started in Wuhan, China. It's like, but that's not. Who cares? Who cares?
Aren't the Democrats all saying, hey, you can't call it a China virus, Trump? Meanwhile, Biden's like, it started in China, and I tried to warn them about the Chinese. And okay, so I was pulling this up. We didn't discuss this, but I actually have a small clip that I want to play in this because I want to remind people that it's not just Biden losing his mind. It's just not Biden having terrible policy. It's not just Biden having a terrible cabinet. It's not just Biden getting all the support just like Hillary Clinton did. It's not just Biden losing. It's okay. Let me just share this. I just shared it. Drumpy put this up.
Yep, I got it.
Like, come on in. You got to grab.
Oh my God.
Someone go behind there. Okay, got some more family. Like, come on in. You got to grab. Sure. Okay. Someone go behind there. So behind the fence.
This is also who this guy is.
That's hard. That's hard to watch. That's hard to.
But there's more videos of that
again,
out
No,
there.
I know there is.
This is not just any girl. Like Trump's like, I would hit any girl. But this is the niece of a senator who's being sworn in right there at that event. Like Trump has done a lot of things, but like touching kids doesn't seem to be in the category of things Trump has even been accused of.
I mean,
this is the package. This is the package.
This is the right category.
This is the person that the Democrats are gung-ho and will chastise you for not voting for. A guy who can't speak, can't follow a question, doesn't know what he's saying, doesn't know where he is, doesn't know what time it is, doesn't know what don't touch means, doesn't know, hey, that's a young girl. Maybe don't look like, even if you're not doing it, don't look like you're flicking her nipple. Seems like the basics that we could ask for a candidate that we just can't seem to do. Because it's just like a royalty back in the medieval ages. It's like, well, we only have this small pool of interbred. Well, it's not the same now, but you know what I'm saying? Of people that are only.
How are we going to pay for it?
Yeah.
I mean, how are you going to pay for it?
And again, this is the real reason why Joe Biden himself is a horrible candidate. He is going to lose against Trump. He's going to be a loser. And again, he's discussing how can people rally around a guy that has a history of sexual abuse and sexual assault? How can Democrats and progressives and independents, lean to a guy that, basically says he has no empathy for millennials? How can anyone rally around a guy that basically cannot have a cognitive thought in his mind? This is somebody who will be eaten alive by Donald Trump. And even let's say in a hypothetical scenario that all of a sudden the vote blue, no matter who, people get their wish and Joe Biden wins and he's the president of the United States. I am concerned about that administration. How stagnant will it be? I mean, Biden has said that nothing will change. Nothing's going to fundamentally change. It'll be rolling back to the days of the good old Obama era. Well, that's how we got Trump in the first place. And just think of how weak that administration will be. And will it? And it could. And I could be wrong about this, but there is a potential of that administration leaving the door open for somebody worse than Donald Trump to come into power.
Yeah, and here's the thing, that the entire, and the argument that we're going to get nonstop is going to be the same argument that got us into this mess in the first place. Hey, you got to vote for the lesser of two evils. So if there's a left and right here, and you can't, well, then maybe someone gets elected. This is about here. But you got to vote for lesser of two evils, and you see vote for here. Republicans move for the left. All that the lesser of two evils argument does is over the long, long period of time, it puts the Democratic Party to the right, following the Republican Party to the right. So what we have now is a Democratic Party, which is really the Republican Party, and a Republican Party, which is really a far right, like 1920s style business party. And the way that, again, and the other part of it is progressives, especially. We saw the article that we did earlier. We've also seen tons of the ways that politicians talk about progressives. They just go, well, they're going to vote for us anyway because they're going to vote for the lesser of two evils. The problem is, the longer that we do it, the worse the election will be. And there's gonna be at the point where we have to take pain in the short term to have success in the long term. Because if all we ever do is avoid conflict by putting it off, by saying, well, I mean, our guy's terrible and touches young girls in not good ways, but you know, that guy's even worse. If we're in a spot where we're talking about things like that, we've already lost. And we need to get out of that sort of argument, because that's just what is a downward spiral. That's what it looks like in real time. And that's how over half a century, a hyperpower like America can destroy itself.
I mean, I just want to add on to that, because if you don't, even if you take away what Daniel had, I mean, not to take away anything from that, because that's disgusting to look at, but if you just look at the interview we had earlier, and all three of the guys just had it perfect, they said it perfectly earlier. If you're arguing with that point of lesser of two, I mean, look at what you just saw. He wasn't. Did you understand what he was talking about? I couldn't even understand where he was going with what he was saying. I mean,
it's a good thing he didn't either.
That great impersonation of it. And this is the person that you want. I don't. Where is the logic there? It's not there. It's not there for me. I'm not seeing it.
I want to end this on a final note too, and I'm only going to speak for myself. I know Daniel has said this too, but look, I can't vote for Joe Biden. I just can't. Look, I have my own thoughts and I have my own core values and beliefs, and I can't support a guy who has a history of sexual abuse and sexual assault. I'm not going to vote for Trump either. I'm probably going to vote independent. But I cannot rally around somebody like Joe Biden, who has a history of screwing over working class people, abusing his power, being a tyrant and a bully. And while, of course, all the Democratic candidates have signed on to that, piece of paper saying that they're all going to rally around the nominee, at this point, sometimes you got to look at a piece of paper like that and rip it up, because that's all it is, a piece of paper from an organization that changes the rules so much throughout the primary that's considered illegitimate at this point. I mean, this is the guy that's supposed to beat Trump. I mean, good luck. And if he does, in a hypothetical scenario, if he does, it only leaves the door open for somebody worse than Trump to come into power. And we just can't have that. So, yeah, there's a real risk of having 4 more years of Trump, but I guess the DNC hasn't learned its lesson from 2016, and they're just going to have to relearn it again in 2020, but it's not my fault that they decided to commit election fraud. And this is where I have to say again to Bernie Sanders, please speak up against the election fraud and the lack of election integrity. You have a chance to stop this, please. I mean, but I don't know, at this point, I might as well be screaming at the wind.